to another week on the channel. We're kicking off this week with the final part of the Vangelis story. This is where we just round him up, really. It's these collaborations. He's worked on 5 albums that he played on, and he produced a few albums as well where he didn't play on. So we're going to rank the albums he played on, and I'll just tell you what other stuff that he's done throughout his career. A busy man, right up until he passed away, apparently. So we're going to look at some of the collaborations that he's worked on and albums that he played on. So the first one we're going to look at, coming in at number 5, is an album that he did with an Italian guitarist, folk type person called Claudio Baglioni. And the album is called Et Tu from 1974. Now on here, Vangelis played keyboards and flutes. We had Raymond Gimenez on acoustic guitar and electric guitar, Jean-Charles Capon on a cello, and Claudio Baglioni on guitar and percussion. There is also some singing on it, but there's no information who does the singing. The first track on here is the title track, and it is called Et Tu. It's all in Italian, so I don't know what they're singing about, but it's not a bad tune actually. Really nice keyboard work from Vangelis. It's pretty good. Second track is called O Melru. I love the piano on this. Definitely tell it's Vangelis playing it. It's got his style. Not my sort of thing. It's pretty mediocre, but you can tell it's Vangelis on the piano. Then we get a track. Now my Italian is totally, if I get this wrong I do apologise. I mille Ciani amor. Sounds really good. It's a shame we don't know what they're singing about. It's not a bad track actually. Then we get Adoro es così. Pleasant to love. It's just not my really my dig here. Then we get Nina Nana Nina Nana. Hang on, Nina Nana Nana Nina. Definitely not my cup of tea. It's something that my nan would have listened to. Then we got Shiza says Mum Penzi. Musically it sounds alright. It's very pleasant. Then we get a thing called Amoda Mio. I actually like this. Some great keyboard work from Vangelis. Even though I don't understand what's going on. Il Mato sei Savagento. Some nice playing on the piano from Vangelis again. Then we get Quanta Strada da Fer. Don't like this at all. It's just not my thing. And then it ends up with a track called Canto, typical Vangelis keyboards. Okay, it's not an album that I would go and listen to again. Vangelis does play well on it, even though I don't like the style. But as an album, I just found it pretty boring. And I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 3 out of 10. Okay, then coming in at number 4 is it's an album of some singles that he did with a band called Forminx that he done between 1965 and 68. So this is actually pre-Dote Aphrodite's Child. On here he goes under his real name of Evangos Pathanassou. Bill Bakopoulos is in this, a guy called Costa Sokos, Socrates Anis and Tassos Patomoteris. Now I don't know what instruments they play because there's not much information about this band, but this is a little compilation of their singles that is available. First track is called Dream in My Heart. Very, very 60s, very Greek. Sort of, definitely, you could tell where he was going to go with some of the stuff in Aphrodite's Child. Not a bad track. I said, yeah, it starts off with a real heavy riff, and then it goes into some European plinky plonky music, that I call it. It's not very good. Then we get El Pepperone. It's quite mamas and papas, really. Nothing wrong with it. Then we got Yanka Beat. It's got a 60s groove, but a terrible backing vocals are going la 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 la. Oh, very irritating. Then we get a thing now. I don't know how to pronounce this. Mangiuno's Shake isn't too bad. It's got some really nice drumming on this. Some good guitar work, and the keyboards, of course, are pretty good on this. One Day in Zapion. Very interesting tune, this one. We've got a nice bass line. Some really good keyboards. It's quite weird, but clever for the time. Our last September. Some pretty good keywork here from Vangelis. That's all I can say about it. And then we get The Forminx, School is Over. This is very pastiche in places. Very nice. Then we get a rocky track called Somebody Send Me Love. Yeah, quite rocky. My favourite track on this little compilation. Pretty good. The Sound of Music. Now, it's not the Hills Are Alive of The Sound of Music, but it's a terrible recording. I don't know what's going on. It's all warbly, and I couldn't make head or tail of it. All I'm going to say with this album is you have to start your musical career somewhere, and this is where he did. So I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 4 out of 10. Okay, then coming in at number 3 is an album that he did with a band called Neuronium in 1996 called A Separate Affair. Now, apart from Vangelis, the band is Mikel Huligen, Carlos Girano, Albert Jimenez and Santi Pico. Basically, this album, it's the same track 3 times. You get In London, the Psychotronic mix. It's 20 minutes long. It is really good in places, and the rest of it is just noise and boring. I did listen to it the whole once, and then I switched off. So the next time I put it on, I put on In London, the After Hours mix, which is 12 minutes and 56. It's shortened down, and it's got more flow. They took all out them boring bits and made it a more concise track, and it's very proggy electronic version of prog. It's Tangerine Dream in places. It's really good. I like that. And then the last thing is a very short thing called In London, the radio mix. It's just a short version. It's pretty good. There's nothing wrong with it. But as an album, it's a nice piece of music. I think the 20-minute one is totally out there. The middle one is probably the best, as I said. It get rid of all the nonsense, and the radio one's just, can play it on the radio. It's not a bad listen. I can't grumble too much. But for the track itself, I'd give it 7 out of 10. Okay then, coming in at number 2. Now this is a band that I've sort of heard of, but had never heard any of their stuff. He joined forces with a band called Socrates in 1976 for the album Phos, or Pho, or Phos. Now Socrates, he goes under the name of Vangelis Papathanisu. We've got George Tradidis on drums, John Sparatas on lead and acoustic guitars. And then we've got Antonios Torgourius on guitars and bass. First track on this one is a track called Starvation. Now this is a mixture of prog and traditional Greek music. It's very good. Keyboards are obviously fantastic. It's a really good track. I really like that one. Queen of the Universe. Some nice catchy beats on here. It's got some great guitar and some fine keyboards from Vangelis. Every dream comes to an end. This is really good. The keyboard work is brilliant. The guitar work is pretty good. Great singing as well. It's a really, really good track. The Bride. This is very Jethro Tull. Very, very good track, and I like the arrangement. Then we have my favourite track actually on this album. It's called Killer. I love the guitar work in this. There's some really good drumming in it. Solid rock track. Favourite one. Then we get A Day in Heaven. This is amazing. This is very proggy with some great keyboard work from Vangelis. Next track, Time of Pain. A good rocker. Great little solo in this, and it's still got that Jethro Tull sound to it. Then we get Mountains. The keyboard and guitar work so well on this. Some nice textures on this. It's not a bad track at all. Good way to end the album. I thought this was a brilliant little album. So I'm going to look into Socrates a little bit more and have a look at their other albums, because I've made a few. So look out for a Socrates album ranking sometime in the near future. I liked it so much, I'm going to give it an RTO ranking of 8 out of 10. Okay, then coming in at number 1. Now this is an album, I just did it in research, but now it sits proudly in my record library because I think this is absolutely brilliant. The album is called The Velocity of Blood. I'm not quite sure when it came out, but I've still not found it. If I find it today, I will put it in there. If not, it'll be blank. And it's by a lady called Suzanne Ciani. Now, Suzanne Ciani is a synthesizer and plays vocoder. Also on the album is Rod Zante, who synthesizes, Chris Lazenzion synthesizes, Elliot Randall synthesizes, and Vangelis synthesizer and soloist. I think he actually did some producing on this as well. So the 8th Wave is the first track. The start of it is just a typical Vangelis keyboard, wonderful keyboard textures. It's a fantastic track. Lay Down Beside Me. Some enchanting music on this. It's literally stayed out of the book of the Vangelis relaxation mode. Really good. Title track, Velocity of Love. Great piano work here. You know it's Vangelis playing the piano. All the other musicians are playing really well on this. Then we get Malibuzas. Very catchy tune. It's got some lovely textures in this. And then History of My Heart. My favourite track on the album. A great relaxing track. A very talented composer. And when you get the help of Vangelis, it is amazing. It's pretty amazing, and it's a good way to end the album. I think this is a really good album. Tell the input that Vangelis put in, and I shall have a look at some of their other stuff as well, because I know it's available. And I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 8.5. I found some albums that are interesting and people he's worked with, but apart from doing that, he's actually produced and composed stuff for quite a lot of people. So I'm just going to go through it, and I've had a listen to these, and some of it's interesting. So the first one I found that he'd done was from 1975, and it's a singer called Maria Angela Celeste from 1975, and the album's called Maria Angela. Just very European. That's not too bad. He's also worked with his old buddy from Aphrodite's Child, Mr. Demis Roussos, of course, and he worked and produced on his album from 1977, Magic. That's just typical Demis Roussos. My nan was into Demis Roussos. Then he worked for a couple of albums on a band called Charisma. He did Chinese Restaurant in 1977 and Hibernation in 1979. I didn't like it at all. It's weird noises and very out there. He'd also worked with a singer-actress, Irene Papas. Now, Irene Papas is most famous for being in the Guns of Navarone. He worked on her album Odes in 1979. It's just typical Greek sort of sounding. It's very pleasant, actually. Didn't realise Irene Papas has such a nice voice. Then in 1981 he worked with an artist called Maliva, produced it. Now the album come out in two versions. Ich hab klein Angst is the German, and Moi je ai pas peur French. So she did the album twice and sang in two different languages. How's good's that? It's not my thing at all, but a very talented woman. I mean, she's sadly passed as well. In 1984, he did another album with his mate Demis. Yeah, I remember that album. My nan had it, and it's all right. It's a sort of covers album. Then he went back to work with Maliva again in 1986. This time she did an album in German called Gehasamis, and then she did it in Italian, and it's Tre du Songhi. Then in 1986 again, very busy in the 80s, apart from doing John Vangelis and his own stuff and soundtracks, he produced another album for Irene Papas. It's okay. So he was very, very busy. Also drew it in 2003. He brought out a greatest hits called Odyssey, the definitive collection. It's got quite a lot of edited versions of some of his big hits, plus some songs that I wanted to talk about that are not on any of their albums. We've got Polestar on this, Polestar's from Abelido .39. Him, of course, is from Opera Sauvage. Got the theme from the Chariots of Fire. Now, the track that's not on any album is the main theme from a thing called Missing. It was originally on a compilation album called Themes from 1989. One of the reasons I want to talk about this album, because I think this is one of the nicest pieces of piano work that he ever did. Fantastic, delicate, moving. It's a terrific piece. It is. I have put it in the playlist because it is a great track. Let me get the love theme from Blade Runner. It's always a favourite of mine. Then we get my favourite, the end titles from Blade Runner. Then Tower of Love from China, the theme from Antarctica. Now another one that's not on any album or anything else is a thing called the main theme from Cavafay. I've always loved this piece of music. It's got a bit of mystique and fantastic place for music. Wonderful piece of music. Then we get the opening titles from The Mutiny of the Bounty. I actually watched that the other night again, and it's a fabulous film. If you've never seen it, check it out. It's a really good film. Then we get the Contest of Paradise, that opening theme, which is pretty good. Then one of my favourite little bits of music from him, Le Petit Fil de Mar, the Enfant Alpha. And then the other track on that's not anywhere, and it's the anthem for the FIFA World Cup of 2002. This is the theme from the World Cup. It was that which was held in Japan and South Korea, of course. So it's got that Far East feel to it. It's absolutely brilliant piece of music. Then another track that's not on anything else, and that's a thing called Celtic Celtic Dawn. Celtic Dawn. A lot of Celtic drums on here. Very, very good. I like anything that's got that Celtic sign. And then the album's just got Movement, one from Mathadia, I'll Find My Way Home, and State of Independence. It's a really good compilation. If you're not really want to get all these albums, I would suggest this one because it is pretty. It goes through some nice tracks. So that's it. We've now looked at the career of the late great Vangelis, a genius, and turned his hands to anything. I mean, I think he wrote some of the nicest soundtracks for music for films. He will be sadly missed. So next week we start on another series. Now this one is this was the only way we could do this. A few months ago, someone on the live stream actually asked me to rank some of the Rick Wakeman albums. Now there are so many, and the easiest way to do it was to split it into decades. So next week we'll be looking at the Rick Wakeman collection albums from the 1970s. Okay, well, I'll be back later with a classic album, and we're going to do a bit of folk American rock from the 60s and a great band called the Lovin' Spoonful, band that the great John Sebastian was in. So we'll be looking at their album, The Hums of Lovin' Spoonful. So join me for that. If not, I will see you tomorrow, which we have got Ladies' Day, of course, and it's Katie Tunstall album ranking and a retro ranking on Annie Lennox. So bye for now.